Madame Rose Magic Shop. Short audio story. Written and narrated by Mons. Jonathan looked with astonishment at the things inside the window. It was a new shop on the market street. Madame Rose Magic Shop, the sign said. However, it looked more like an antique shop. A woman was walking around inside, moving hats, wands, clocks, small statues, necklaces, and other trinkets. There were other magic shops in town. Those sold stuffed bunnies and boxes with secret compartments. Jonathan didn't see any of those inside Madame Rose's window. Maybe he needed to walk inside to find them, so he did. "Welcome, dear," said the shop owner woman that Jonathan just guessed name was Rose. "Hi," Jonathan answered. He looked around for the usual trickster tools you would find in a magic shop. He found nothing of the sort. "I don't see any magic boxes," Jonathan said. "Oh, you want a magic box? I think I have just the thing," Madame Rose answered. She went over to a shelf, almost tripping on her long hair, stepped up on some chairs, and extended some extra inches with her toes. The entire shelf was filled with strange objects beyond Jonathan's wildest guesses, but Rose wasn't reaching for any of those. She was actually grabbing something on top of the shelf, behind everything else. Then down she came with a little black box. "I think you would love this, Jonathan," she said. He looked inside, but it was empty. Then he looked for secret compartments, but he found nothing. "How do I use it?" he asked. "Oh, you only need to put something in it. Then whatever it is will turn into candy. When I was traveling more, I almost got fat from that thing, eating candy all day," she said in such a casual way. "Excuse me?" some other customer said, peeking at Madame Rose's attention. "I will be right back," she said to the young boy Jonathan, and walked over. "This clock is going backwards," the customer said. "Ah, yes, you see, it pushes its owner's age. So I am the owner, and as it's going backwards, it's making me younger," Madame Rose said with a big smile on her face. "Right. Whatever you say. Listen, I love the clock. It looks amazing. All these ornaments and carvings on it looks really old. I was thinking of giving it to my father. He loves these antique things." "A perfect gift for an old man. This clock will make him young again." Yeah. How do I change it so it goes forward?" "Oh, I would advise you away from that. The owner will get old twice as fast." Yeah, just tell me." "All you need to do is change this little wheel on the back." "Great, I'll take it." When the customer left, Madame Rose went back to Jonathan. "He didn't believe me, that man. Do you believe me, Jonathan?" "I never told you my name," answered Jonathan. "You don't need to," she said while smiling. "This must be a real magic shop," Jonathan answered. He paid for the box and then he ran home with excitement. Rose must be a witch, otherwise how could she have known his name? The young boy ran all the way home through the entire town to his street, Baker Alley. His mom was making dinner, but Jonathan had other candy priorities. He ran up on his tiny legs on the stairs to his bedroom. He jumped up and sat down on his bed with his little legs tingling and dingling on the edge of the bed, and with the black candy box on his lap. Suddenly he was a little bit afraid of opening the box, but eventually he did and peeked inside, empty as before. What should he put inside it? Madame Rose had said that whatever he placed inside the little box would turn into candy. He looked around inside his little room for something that he didn't care about anymore, something he was okay with eating. He found a small tiny plastic car toy that he hadn't played with for years, so he decided to sacrifice the thing for for the greater candy good. And then he waited, and waited some more. And then he realized that he didn't know how long he needed to wait. So, after 30 seconds, he opened the lid. He picked up the small little car toy. It was still plastic. Maybe he needed to wait a little bit longer. So, he put it back and closed the box. "Dinner! The dinner is ready, Jonathan!" His mom shouted from downstairs. Maybe that's the amount of time the box needed to do its magic. So Jonathan decided to leave the thing as it were and go down and eat. The entire family was there, Mom, Dad, and Jonathan's older and younger annoying sisters. Mom had made spaghetti and meatballs, but Jonathan didn't put much focus onto what he ate. His thoughts circled around his potential candy factory upstairs. He didn't even participate in any form of daily conversation this family always had around the dinner table, something he usually did. Instead, he devoured the food as fast as he could, so he could go back upstairs again to loot his treasure chest. But his focus was immediately drawn back to the dinner table when his dad brought up a subject he was actually quite interested in. "Have you guys heard the latest rumors? Apparently there's a new shop in town run by a very old lady in Market Street. She claims it's a magic shop with actual real magic. Have you heard the word? Actually, everyone who's been there more considered as an antique shop. It's filled with old trinkets and beautiful objects, but she actually believes that they are, listen to this, magical." I've actually heard there is a lot of old and fine objects in that shop, like antique things. I was actually thinking of going there and taking a look if I could find a valuable necklace that I like. Jonathan's mom said as she jumped into the conversation of gossip and rumors. "Then I recommend you try and buy something from her tomorrow, before they throw her in the loony bin." Jonathan couldn't believe what he heard. Could it be true that all of it was just a fraud? "Honey, are you already done?" Jonathan's mom said when Jonathan left the table and ran back up all the stairs without finishing his meal. He crashed down onto bed. They were all wrong. Madame Rose was real, and she wasn't any form of fake freak, and the shop was a real magic shop. He was suddenly a little bit afraid of opening the box, discovering that everything had been a lie. But somehow he found courage and peeked inside. And he couldn't believe his eyes. The plastic metal hard toy car was suddenly soft as chocolate. It even tasted as chocolate, together with a small sweet taste of honey. It was the best taste he'd ever had. It felt so good as it went down his stomach. And he had his own little candy factory in the same size as a small little box. He laid there several minutes with a big smile on his face. Then he realized he wanted more candy. So he looked around his room. What should he put in the box? Then he got a brilliant idea. He ran outside onto the street. All over the street you could find small little stones. It didn't take him long to fill his little box with pebbles and rocks. Before going to sleep, he placed the box in the safest place that he knew of, under his pillow. Next day, little Jonathan ran down the stairs and out of the door towards school. "Jonathan, breakfast!" his mom shouted behind him. "Not hungry," he shouted back. He had more candy on him for a whole day. While he walked towards school, he tasted some of the stone and rocky candy pebbles. Gloriously, they all tasted differently. Some had a honey taste, others tasted a little bit more blueberry, while some had a strawberry taste and another had a chocolate taste. But he had to restrain himself because he wanted the candy to last the entire day. Then he realized that he had a candy factory inside his pocket, and whenever he wanted to, he could make more. He started to fantasize about what he was gonna try next, Would he try to eat some wood, maybe his pencils, maybe some other stuff? Then he realized what he was gonna eat. He was gonna turn his homework into candy. Finally in class, while the teacher was having his back towards his student and writing things on the board, Jonathan was sneak eating candy during the class. He was quite satisfied that he got away with eating candy during school time, but he didn't completely get away with it. His other classmates actually took notice that Jonathan had some tasty candy with him. And they all envied Jonathan's great fortune, especially Alfred, the school's bully. He was a big boy meanie, someone that was used to push people around so he could, for example, cut in the food line. Or when they had a lunch break, he just needed to push Jonathan down on the ground. And then without Jonathan's consent, Alfred decided that Jonathan would share all his candy with him. In other words, Alfred just took it all. Wasn't fair. Alfred was a bully. Madame Rose was just talking with a customer of hers. This necklace is a magical amulet protecting yourself from pregnancies. I used to wear it when I was a little bit more sexual active. The young lady's eyes widened when she heard the taboo word sexual active. Well, me and my husband are actually trying to get a child, so you don't recommend that I purchase this necklace then? The young lady customer asked Madame Rose back. In that case, this is a necklace you shouldn't purchase, Madame Rose answered. Well, in the end, I don't really believe in fairy tales. I will buy it. After the young lady customer left, Madame Rose walked over to Jonathan and said, You are the only person in this entire town that has actually believed me, boy. Jonathan suddenly realized that Madame Rose looked a lot older compared to yesterday. Her hair was a little bit more grey, she had more wrinkles, she was a bit shorter, and her voice sounded a little bit more crispy, like a grandma. Don't worry, dear, I'm fine, and I'm quite older than your grandma. Madame Rose suddenly answered Jonathan's thoughts, like if she was reading his mind. So Jonathan decided to make a little bit of an experiment. Instead of mentioning and talking about Alfred, he actually thought about Alfred and what had happened. Madame Rose stood there silently observing him, but Jonathan was sure she was reading his mind. She did all the typical body language signs someone did when they listen to someone, like nodding her head and saying the typical, I understand. Then Madame Rose talked again. I think I found a person I came to this town to find. From the inside of a coat pocket, she pulled out a small wand made of wood and bone. Take this, boy. It's yours now. I will pass it on to you, just like someone passed it on to me many, many, many years ago. Use it as you please, just like I did when I walked this earth and did whatever I wanted. Jonathan didn't know what to say, but it didn't seem like he needed to say anything. Madame Rose just handed over the wand and then went over towards a chair. She sat down and let her head fall downwards. She sat there for some time. Then the new wand owner went over towards Rose to just check on her. And then Jonathan realized she was dead. School was finally over and Alfred was heading home, back home. He was longing for home. His belly was filled with candy. It felt so good. During his walk, suddenly he stumbled upon Jonathan, straight in front of him. They were all alone in the woods, and the much smaller Jonathan was walking with sure step towards the much taller Alfred. What do you want? Alfred asked Jonathan. Jonathan pointed with the wand towards Alfred. I want to turn you into a frog! And that's exactly what Alfred became, a small, tiny, jumping frog. Jonathan chased down the small and scared, confused frog and picked it up. Then he picked up the black box. He opened the box, and he placed Alfred the small tiny frog inside it. Then he closed the lid.